The stars above Vera Prime shimmered like a sea of silver fire. Around the great planet, rings of blue ice curved across the darkness, throwing pale light onto the surface far below. Deep within the capital city, a tall spire of crystal and alloy stretched toward the sky. This was the Hall of Concord, home of the Galactic Council. Inside, the council chamber thrummed with uneasy voices. Representatives from dozens of civilizations sat in crescent rows that rose in gentle tiers. Some were tall and feathered, some scaled, some small and soft-skinned, others wrapped in misty forms of light. They had gathered to discuss the same problem that had haunted every session for the past year: the raids of the Dravari. The Dravari were a fierce, gray-skinned species with eyes like polished stone. They were not part of the council. They rejected its laws and demanded tribute from weaker worlds. For months, they had attacked supply ships, mining colonies, and frontier stations. Their ships were fast, their weapons sharp, and their cruelty well known. Many delegates trembled at the thought of facing them. High Chancellor Rhinal, a tall, blue-scaled being from the planet Varus, stood at the center platform. His voice echoed from hidden speakers around the room. "My honored colleagues," Rhinal said, raising a hand with careful calm. "We meet again to speak of the Dravari menace. Their forces have struck 2 more outposts in the Eastern Rim. We have received no word from the survivors." A murmur ran through the chamber. Ambassador Fulren of the Winged Kale tilted his head, feathers quivering. "How many settlements must fall before we act?" he cried. "They will not stop until we pay them everything they ask." Across the floor, Counselor Tana of the Mistborn flowed upward in a pale column. Her voice was a whisper like wind through reeds. "We have offered them trade. We have offered treaties. They return only with more demands. Violence is not in our way, but how long can we endure?" Rhinal's scales darkened with frustration. "We cannot outfight them without unity," he said. "Yet every time we speak of defense, some among us retreat. We speak of hiding or yielding or abandoning our borders. If we divide, the Dravari will devour us piece by piece." A heavy silence followed his words. Many delegates looked down or shifted uncomfortably. Even those with claws or horns seemed smaller in their seats. At the edge of the chamber, in a shadowed gallery reserved for record keepers, Lyrian adjusted the recording crystal on her wrist. She was a young xenohistorian from a quiet world of scholars. She had come here to study the council's debates, but she found herself caught in their fear. Her slender fingers tightened around her tablet as she listened. From the far end of the floor, a sharp laugh rang out. It came from Jorvak, the representative of the Steelborn, a people known for their metal-infused skin. "We should stop talking," he said, leaning forward with a gleam in his copper eyes. "We should pay the Dravari. Give them what they want, and they will leave us be." "Leave us?" Fulren snapped, wings flaring. "You think they will stop once they taste weakness?" Jorvak shrugged, the plates on his shoulders clinking. "Perhaps not. But fighting them is worse. We have lost patrol fleets already." "Enough," Rhinal said, though his tone carried little force. Before he could continue, a new sound filled the air, a slow, deliberate rhythm. The doors at the far side opened and 2 Dravari guards marched in, their boots ringing on the polished floor. Behind them strode a tall figure wrapped in black armor, ridged with silver. It was Vetar, the Dravari war speaker. Every delegate froze. Some instinctively pulled back their chairs. The Dravari were not invited to this meeting, but they entered as if they owned the hall. Vetar's voice was deep and smooth, like stone sliding over stone. "You speak of us," he said, scanning the rows. "You speak, yet you do not listen. The Dravari do not seek war, only what we are owed." Rhinal tried to stand firm. "You were not summoned," he said. "I summon myself," Vetar replied calmly. "We demand new tribute. 10 cargo holds of refined tritium each cycle, drawn from your richest mines. Pay, and we will let your shipping pass unharmed." Several delegates gasped. Others looked away, unwilling to meet his gaze. "And if we refuse?" Fulren asked, though his voice trembled. Vetar's lip curled into a thin smile. "Refusal brings consequence. Already your outposts burn." The chamber shook faintly as he struck the floor with a staff. Holograms flared into the air, images of smoldering colonies, ships broken in orbit, civilians fleeing fire. The scene sent a wave of dread through the room. "You cannot terrorize this council," Rhinal said, though his voice cracked. "We are many. You are one, are you?" Vetar asked softly, letting the words sink in. He swept his gaze across the rows, reading hesitation on every face. You have grown fat and slow in your peace. We have sharpened our strength. He turned and walked toward the exit, his guards close behind. Just before stepping through the doors, he paused and looked back. You will pay, he said, or you will lose everything. When the doors closed behind him, the chamber buzzed with alarmed voices. Delegates shouted, argued, begged for calm. Some urged war, others surrender. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Lyrian stood still, heart racing. She had spent years studying ancient records of lost species and forgotten battles. Something about the Dravari's contempt stirred an old memory. Half a line from a dusty archive she had read months ago. It spoke of a power hidden in cold sleep, waiting for a time of need. She whispered the words under her breath. Guardians sleeping beneath ice. She knew she should return her focus to the debate, but the phrase clung to her thoughts. She tapped quickly through her tablet, searching through references. An old symbol appeared, a stylized figure with outstretched arms encircled by stars. The caption read, Aurora Protocol, do not disturb except in darkest hour. Her pulse quickened. She had seen this before, buried in restricted files linked to Aurora 7, a frozen world far from trade routes. She had assumed it was myth, another relic of pre-council folklore. But now, with the Dravari threatening to break the galaxy apart, the words seemed less like legend and more like warning. Across the chamber, Chancellor Reinl tried to restore order. We must hold firm, he urged. The council was built to stand together against fear, yet fear already held the room. Delegates avoided his eyes. Some whispered of evacuation, others muttered about surrender. The council was a gathering of civilizations that once dreamed of unity, but their courage felt thin as mist. Lyrian hesitated only a moment longer. Then she quietly slipped out of the gallery, her robe brushing against the smooth floor. She needed to learn more about Aurora 7 and the beings the archives called humans. If the records were true, they had once defended the stars from chaos. Perhaps they could do so again. Outside, the sky above Vera Prime was turning amber as the planet's sun dipped low. Ships glided past the spire, their running lights blinking in steady rhythm. Lyrian walked toward the research wing, thoughts racing faster than her steps. In the council chamber behind her, voices rose and fell, trapped between fear and duty. None of them noticed the young historian leaving, nor guessed that she carried the first hint of an answer sleeping in the frozen silence of a distant world. A thin mist floated over the landing bays of Vera Prime as Lyrian hurried toward the research docks. Her steps echoed on the polished floor, a quiet rhythm against the hum of engines preparing for departure. She had not slept since the stormy meeting in the council chamber. The Dravari's threat still hung in her mind, heavy as stone, but another thought burned even brighter. Aurora 7. She reached Dock 12, where a sleek survey ship rested on its landing cradle. Its silver hull gleamed in the bay lights. A tall figure in a pale uniform stood beside the boarding ramp, reading a list on a screen. He was Jalen, a navigation officer for the Council's archive fleet. Lyrian, he said, looking up in surprise. I didn't expect you here before dawn. I need your help, she replied, lowering her voice. I found something in the archives. A clue about an old defense protocol, the Aurora Protocol. I think it may be linked to the humans. Jalen frowned slightly. Humans. That name belongs to old star myths. I thought so too, she said. But the records speak of a vault under the ice of a distant world. It says they were placed in cryogenic sleep until they were needed. What if they're real? What if they were meant to protect the Council in times like these? Jalen hesitated, his eyes moving toward the patrol guards at the far end of the bay. If this is true, we would need permission from the Chancellor. By the time the Council decides anything, she replied, the Dravari might destroy another colony. Please, Jalen. We only need to confirm if Aurora 7 exists. He studied her face for a long moment, then sighed. All right. I'll file a short-range survey request. No one will question a historian and a pilot doing research, at least not at first. They boarded the ship, a compact vessel designed for speed and stealth. Inside, soft lights glowed along curved panels. Jalen slid into the pilot seat while Lyrian settled at the co-pilot console, pulling up the archive map she had copied onto her tablet. A string of star coordinates glimmered on the screen, faint and uncertain as if reluctant to be found. Setting course for the outer belt, Jalen said. Hold on. With a hum, the ship rose from the platform and drifted through the bay doors. Beyond lay the wide expanse of space, a black canvas sprinkled with white fire. Jalen engaged the jump engines and the stars stretched into bright lines. Hours passed in the quiet of hyperspace. Lyrian sat with her chin resting on her hands, reading everything the archive held about the Aurora Protocol. Most of it was fragmented. Warnings about guardians, notes about sealed chambers, a single phrase repeated again and again. To wake them is to change the course of the stars. What do you think they were? Jalen asked finally. Soldiers, maybe, Lyrian said. Or explorers with great skills. The records call them humans. They came from a blue world far away, but the name of their home is lost. Jalen gave a soft laugh. Blue world? Sounds peaceful. Or dangerous, Lyrian said quietly. The archives say they faced great wars. They built ships and weapons that shaped the galaxy. Then they vanished. Maybe they left because they were tired, Jalen suggested. Or maybe they planned to sleep until someone needed them. Lyrian nodded, though unease stirred in her stomach. Whoever they were, waking them might bring answers or new trouble. The jump drive slowed and the ship returned to normal space. Before them stretched a lonely star system, its sun pale and small. Several planets circled it, but one drew their eyes at once. Wrapped in clouds and shadow, it turned slowly on its axis. A white-blue marble against the dark. Frozen plains glittered under weak light. Their scanners confirmed the name etched in the archive. Aurora 7. They descended through thin atmosphere, past mountains carved by ancient winds. Snow swept across the viewports in silver streaks. Jalen guided the ship to a wide plateau where the ice lay smooth and firm. As they landed, a faint pulse of energy flickered on the sensors. Something down there is alive, Jalen murmured. They stepped out into cold air so sharp it stung their lungs. The landscape stretched endless and still, a world locked in crystal sleep. Lyrian's boots crunched on the snow as she followed the readings across the plain. Ahead, the ground sloped gently toward a ridge of ice. At its base, a dark opening yawned. A stairway of smooth stone led downward, cut with precision that spoke of intelligent hands. Faint lights flickered along its edges, old yet steady. The pair exchanged a glance, then started down. Inside, the temperature held steady, warmer than outside but still crisp. The corridor walls shimmered faintly, lined with panels carved with strange marks. Some resembled stars, others shapes of ships or tools. Lyrian traced them lightly. These inscriptions are ancient, she said, her voice hushed. But the language, it looks like no council script. They moved deeper until the passage widened into a vast chamber. The ceiling arched high above, hung with frost like glass lace. Rows of smooth pods stretched across the floor, each one long enough to hold a person. Their surfaces glowed faint blue. Within the nearest pod lay a figure, pale against dark fabric. Lyrian drew closer, heart hammering. The being inside was tall, with smooth skin, hair the color of night, and hands folded across its chest. Its face was calm, almost serene, as if caught in a peaceful dream. The body seemed alive, only paused. There must be hundreds, Jalen whispered, looking down the rows. They're human, Lyrian breathed, hardly daring to say the word aloud. At the far wall, a control pedestal stood waiting, covered with thin frost. Lyrian brushed the surface clear, revealing a panel of symbols. A single large circle pulsed gently, like the beat of a heart. She hesitated, fingers hovering. Careful, Jalen warned. We don't know what pressing that will do. Lyrian lowered her hands. You're right. We should study it first. She activated a small scanner from her pack and began copying the designs. Patterns of data filled her tablet, revealing fragments of an old program. Life support cycles, security locks, and a command line labeled Revival Sequence. They really are asleep, she said. The system is keeping them alive until someone chooses to release them. But why leave them here? Jalen asked. And why did no one tell the council? Maybe someone wanted to protect them, Lyrian guessed. Or protect the galaxy from them. They walked among the pods, their breath fogging in the cool air. Some sleepers were men, some women. A few bore faint scars across their hands or brows, as though they had once lived through storms and battles. Despite the years, their faces showed calm strength. As they examined the chamber, soft lights bloomed along the walls. A voice low and clear echoed in the room. It spoke a language neither of them knew, yet its rhythm felt like a greeting. What was that? Jalen asked, startled. An automated message, Lyrian said, checking her scanner. The base must have detected our presence. A new glow flickered above the control pedestal, forming a simple hologram, a star map with one point blinking bright, their current location. Lines spread outward to mark nearby sectors, including council space. Beside the map appeared text in tall, elegant letters. Lyrian used a translator, piecing together meaning. It says, "If you have come, the hour is dark. Release the Guardians only if there is no other hope." Jalen stared at the message. That sounds like a warning. Yes, she agreed quietly. It also means they left a choice. They stood together, the cold chamber silent around them except for the gentle thrum of machines that had worked through ages. Outside, wind howled across the frozen plateau. Finally, Jalen spoke. If the Dravari keep attacking, maybe this is what the galaxy needs. Maybe, Lyrian said. But we must be sure. If we wake them, we can't put them back. They returned to the ship to send a report to the Chancellor. Lyrian prepared careful words, describing the discovery without revealing every detail. She feared that frightened politicians might rush to act, or destroy the sleepers out of caution. She chose a message simple and steady. Evidence found of ancient allies. Recommend secure study before activation. After sending the report, they sat in the cabin, looking out at the icy plains. Stars glittered above, sharp and cold. What do you think they'll say? Jalen asked. They'll debate, Lyrian replied. They always do. But we may not have time. Her gaze drifted to the ridge where the entrance lay hidden. Beneath that ice lay a secret older than the council itself. The humans waited, patient as stone, ready or not, for the call of a galaxy on the brink. The wind over Aurora 7 howled like a living thing, rattling the small survey ship where it rested on the frozen plateau. Inside, the cabin lights glowed softly, casting warm circles across the metal floor. Lyrian sat at the table with her tablet, staring at the report she had just written for the council. The words felt heavy. She had described the underground vault and the sleeping figures without revealing the full warning carved into the walls. Some secrets, she thought, needed careful hands. Jalen stood by the viewport, watching snow sweep across the landing struts. No answer yet from Vera Prime, he said. Maybe the message is still moving through their channels. Or maybe they don't know what to say, Lyrian replied. She rubbed her eyes, tired but too restless to rest. We found something beyond anything in their records. That kind of truth can frighten people. Jalen turned from the window. What frightens me, he said quietly, is that the Dravari won't wait for the council to finish debating. Lyrian looked toward the dark entrance they had uncovered. The ice ridge hid it well, as if the planet itself meant to protect what slept below. She remembered the quiet faces inside the pods. Calm, steady, unbroken by time. Guardians, the inscription had called them. We should learn more, she said finally. If we wait, we may lose our chance. They returned to the cavern later that morning, their lamps cutting clean circles of light through the chill. The air smelled faintly metallic, the scent of old machinery still alive after untold centuries. The pod stretched in rows, silent except for the soft pulse of the life support systems. Lyrian approached the control pedestal again. Frost had begun to melt where her hands had brushed it the day before. The holographic map hovered above it, glowing pale blue. She studied the symbols carefully, translating them word by word. There's a sequence here, she murmured. It monitors their heartbeat, body temperature, and neural activity. It also shows a switch to prepare revival. Jalen leaned over her shoulder. Do you think they meant us to use it? Maybe, she said. Or maybe they meant someone with greater authority. He frowned. Authority won't matter if the Dravari reach this world first. She hesitated, then entered a command to open the next set of instructions. Lines of text unfolded across the pedestal screen along with a gentle tone. To wake a guardian, confirm necessity, state reason clearly. The words startled her. The system expected a voice. I suppose it wants to hear our purpose, Jalen said. Lyrian swallowed. She glanced around the chamber, then spoke aloud, steady but quiet. We come from the Galactic Council, she said. Our people are under threat. We seek help to protect them. A soft pause followed. Then a new message scrolled onto the screen. Request accepted. Prepare for first activation. A heartbeat later, lights flickered along the nearest row of pods. Thin vapors hissed from hidden vents. The glow inside the capsules shifted from blue to white. Jalen stepped back, hand instinctively moving toward. The small sidearm on his belt, not as threat but as reflex. One of the pods released a long sigh, then the lid slid upward with a smooth motion. Mist spilled across the floor. Inside, a figure stirred. Slowly, a woman sat up, blinking against the light. She was tall, with dark hair cut short and eyes the clear color of winter skies. Her uniform, though faded, was neat, marked with symbols neither Lyrian nor Jalen recognized. She looked at them, calm but sharp, as if measuring every detail. "Status report," the woman said in a firm voice, her language crisp and strange. The ship's translator crackled, translating her words into the common tongue. Lyrian stepped forward carefully. "Greetings," she said. "You are safe. You have been asleep for a very long time." The woman's gaze settled on her. "Identify yourselves." "I am Lyrian, a historian of the Council," Lyrian replied. "This is Jalen, pilot of the archives." The woman studied them for a long breath, then swung her legs out of the pod. Her movements were steady, controlled. She scanned the chamber, noting the other sleepers. "How long?" she asked again. Lyrian glanced at her tablet. "According to our records, you've been in stasis for several thousand cycles. The council that rules today was not yet formed when you entered sleep." A flicker passed through the woman's eyes, something between wonder and grief. But she kept her voice even. "And the reason for my awakening?" Jalen spoke then. "There's danger," he said. "A hostile force threatens the stars. We hoped you could advise us." The woman looked toward the glowing pedestal, reading the data with quick understanding. "Cryo integrity intact," she murmured to herself. Then she straightened. "I am Captain Arya Vega, commander of the Terran Expeditionary Corps. Who gave you permission to release me?" "No one," Lyrian admitted, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. "The Council doesn't yet know what we've found. We believed it was necessary." Captain Vega regarded them in silence. Finally she nodded. "You acted on judgment. Good. We will need that." As the captain stretched her limbs, other pods began to hum softly. Their lids lifted, revealing more figures. Men and women of different heights and builds, all dressed in the same uniform. They woke slowly but without confusion, as if prepared for this moment even after centuries of stillness. A broad-shouldered man with silver hair rose from one capsule and saluted Vega. "Systems holding, Captain," he reported, scanning the room with a soldier's eye. "Crew revival at 5% and climbing." "Stand by for full assessment," Vega replied. "Minimal exposure until we confirm conditions." The humans moved with quiet discipline, checking readouts on nearby panels. Though their faces showed curiosity, there was no panic. They accepted the impossible with calm readiness. Lyrian watched, fascinated. They were not like any council species she knew. Their posture carried quiet strength. Their eyes missed nothing. Even their silence felt deliberate, like a language of its own. One of the crew, a young man with sandy hair, approached Jalen. "Local time?" he asked. Jalen hesitated before giving the current date in council standard. The man whistled softly. "We overslept," he muttered half to himself. Meanwhile, Captain Vega inspected the inscriptions on the wall. "This base was meant to hold until conditions required us," she said. She turned to Lyrian. "You spoke of a council. Explain." Lyrian described the alliance of species, their hopes for unity, and the rising threat of the Dravari. Vega listened without interruption, only asking for clarification when needed. When Lyrian finished, the captain folded her arms. "So the galaxy is caught between weak leadership and predatory raiders," she said. "History repeats." "You've seen this before?" Lyrian asked. "More times than I care to count," Vega replied. "Humanity learned long ago that order is fragile. That is why we built the Cryo network, to ensure someone would remain when others faltered. She looked around at her crew, now fully awake and gathered near the pedestal. "Report, Lieutenant." A tall woman with a scanner stepped forward. "Life support system stable. Supplies adequate for short operations. Weapons stores minimal but functional. External sensors detect low activity. 2 life forms. Likely our guests." Vega gave a faint smile. "Good. We will keep it that way until we understand the situation." Hours passed as the humans examined their surroundings. They repaired a few cracked conduits, calibrated air vents, and reconnected old data links. Lyrian helped where she could, translating symbols or passing tools. Jalen observed quietly, impressed by their focus. At last Vega gathered everyone near the pedestal. "We have limited time," she said. "If this Dravari threat is as severe as described, we must learn their intent and decide how to act. But first we must make contact with this council." Lyrian hesitated. "They may not react well," she warned. "They argue over everything. Some may fear you." "Fear is natural," Vega said gently, "but it cannot lead. We will speak with them, and they will choose." Jalen cleared his throat. "The council also doubts itself," he said. "They talk more than they act." Vega regarded him steadily. "Then we will show them action." The captain ordered 2 of her officers to begin powering an old communications array built into the chamber's far wall. As they worked, she addressed Lyrian and Jalen again. "You were brave to come here," she said. "You took risk to find the truth. That matters." Lyrian felt warmth at the words. "We only wanted to help." "You have," Vega said simply. By evening, the humans had set up a small command post inside the cavern. Panels glowed with status lights and portable heaters softened the air. The crew shared ration packs, offering some to their visitors. Lyrian tasted a dry, nutty square that crumbled softly, bland but comforting. As they ate, conversation grew easier. The humans spoke of ancient Earth, of oceans and forests and skies filled with clouds. They spoke of starships that once crossed great distances, of battles fought to keep peace, and of the decision to enter stasis when the galaxy slid into darkness. "We called it the Long Vigil," one officer explained. "We trusted that one day someone would need us." Captain Vega nodded. "That day seems to be now." Night deepened beyond the ice walls. The vault lights cast soft halos on the sleepers who still lay in their pods, waiting for future awakening. Vega decided to rouse only a portion of her people for now, keeping others in reserve until supplies were secure. Before resting, she stood once more at the entrance, looking out toward the frozen plain. The sky above was full of stars, distant and bright. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. "Humanity endures," she said. "Even the cold could know." The ice plains of Aurora 7 glittered under a pale sun as Captain Arya Vega stood outside the vault, watching the horizon. The cold air did not seem to bother her. It sharpened her focus. Behind her, the human crew worked steadily, preparing their small command post for departure. They had spent 2 days repairing systems, checking weapons, and studying recent star maps taken from Lyrian's tablet. Inside, the hum of ancient machinery mixed with quiet voices. Lyrian and Jalen sat near a heating unit, reviewing the messages from the council. At last, a clear signal arrived. "The Chancellor wants to see you," Jalen said, scanning the message. "He asks that you bring representatives of the Awakened. The council is meeting again tomorrow." Captain Vega entered, reading their faces. "They're ready?" "They're nervous," Lyrian admitted, "but they want to meet you." Vega nodded. "Then we will go. Tell them we come as allies." By dawn, the humans had prepared a small shuttle once hidden inside the vault. Its hull was old but sleek, marked with faint symbols of Earth's past. Jalen helped Vega check the controls while Lyrian watched the other crew members secure equipment. "Are you sure about this?" Lyrian asked softly. "Yes," Vega said. "If the council cannot see hope, they will fall apart. We must show them they are not alone." The shuttle rose from the ice and broke through the thin clouds. Stars spread across the sky as they left Aurora 7. Vega sat calmly at the helm, her eyes on the path ahead. Around her, her people sat silent but alert, every movement precise. The trip to Vera Prime took several hours. As they approached, the world shone like a jewel wrapped in silver clouds. They descended toward the capital where the Hall of Concord rose like a glass tower. News of their arrival spread quickly. Curious ships trailed them at a respectful distance. When the shuttle landed on the council platform, guards in polished armor surrounded it. Delegates peered from balconies, whispering among themselves. Few had expected the mysterious guardians mentioned in Lyrian's report to actually arrive. The ramp lowered. Captain Vega stepped out first, flanked by two of her officers. They moved with quiet confidence, their boots ringing softly against the stone. Lyrian and Jalen followed close behind. Gasps rippled through the gathered crowd. The humans looked so solid. Their posture, their eyes, even the way they breathed carried a weight of history. Some delegates felt a spark of hope. Others felt unease. Chancellor Reinl hurried forward, scales shimmering under the morning light. "Welcome," he said, his voice steady but formal. "We thank you for coming to aid the council." Vega inclined her head politely. "We are honored," she said through the translator. "But we must speak openly of the threat you face." Inside the chamber, the session began with a hum of voices. Delegates filled the crescent seats while Vega and her team stood at the central platform. Lyrian and Jalen stayed near the edge, watching anxiously. Reinl addressed the hall. "Esteemed members, today we meet not alone. These visitors come from a time before our council. They have slept for centuries, waiting for a moment of need. Let us hear their counsel." Vega stepped forward, her presence steady as stone. "Representatives of the council," she began. "I am Captain Aria Vega of Earth, commander of the Terran Expeditionary Corps. My crew and I were placed in stasis to guard against the day when order might crumble. That day is now." The chamber fell silent. "You face a predator," she continued. "The Dravari seek to rule by fear. They count on your division. They believe no one will stand against them. They are wrong." Her calm voice carried through the hall. Even the faint echo of machinery seemed to pause. "They have strength," she said, "but not unity. They have ships, but not purpose beyond greed. If you stand together, you will not be easy prey." A few delegates murmured approval, but others looked doubtful. One rose, Jorvac of the Steelborn, his metal skin gleaming. "Fine words," he said. "But words will not stop their blades. They burned our outposts. What can a handful of sleepers do?" Vega met his gaze evenly. "We do not promise miracles," she said, "but we bring skill, memory, and the will to resist. That is enough to inspire others. And sometimes inspiration is the first weapon." Before anyone could reply, the chamber doors banged open. A group of Dravari entered, led by Vatar himself. Their gray armor gleamed, and their eyes were cold stones. The guards tensed but did not block their path. The council allowed envoys safe entry. Vatar strode to the center, his staff striking the floor. "I see new players in this game," he said, studying the humans. "Who are these creatures that stand so boldly?" "We are the ones you thought forgotten," Vega replied, voice calm but strong. "We have woken to stop the harm you spread." Vatar laughed, a sound like grinding rock. "Stop us, you are few. We are many." "Numbers mean nothing if they hide behind threats," Vega said. "We have faced worse than you." The Dravari leader stepped closer, towering above her, but she did not move back. "You speak bravely," he said, "but courage will not save you." Vega's eyes did not waver. Courage is the beginning of saving everyone. The hall held its breath. Tension cracked the air. The Dravari warriors shifted, ready to intimidate. But Vega raised a hand lightly, signaling her officers to stay calm. She turned back to the council. "These raiders survive because you allow them," she said. "Fear lets them grow. Stand together. Build patrols, share information, protect your borders. My crew and I will teach you tactics to hold your ground." Rinel's tail flicked nervously. "Our fleets are scattered. Many worlds have no defenses." "Then gather them," Vega said simply. "Even broken pieces can form a shield," Vatar scoffed. "Do you think speeches will stop our advance?" "No," Vega replied. "Action will." She nodded to one of her officers. He stepped forward and activated a small device. A holographic display filled the air, showing a simulation. Dravari ships swarming a trade route, then meeting resistance from coordinated squadrons, mines, and decoys. The image shifted to show planetary shields and hidden supply caches. "This is how you fight raiders," Vega said. "You use planning, not panic." The council delegates leaned forward, whispering among themselves. The hologram showed hope they had not imagined. Vatar's face hardened. "You presume much," he said. "Perhaps you should be taught your place." He moved as if to close the space between them. But before he could reach her, Vega's officer stepped calmly into his path, hand resting lightly on the hilt of a tool. Not drawn, just a reminder. The motion was smooth, unafraid. Vatar paused. The hall watched in silence. "You're not used to prey standing firm," Vega said. "That time is over." The Dravari envoy stared at her for a long moment, then lowered his staff with a slow hiss. "We will see," he said, turning sharply. He led his warriors out, their footsteps echoing down the corridor. After they left, the chamber filled with voices. Some cheered softly. Others argued. Reinl raised his hand for calm. "We have seen a new choice," he said. "Stand or yield." The vote was swift but close. By a narrow margin, the council agreed to begin united defenses, guided by the humans' experience. For the first time in many cycles, purpose flickered in their eyes. Later, in a quiet room above the chamber, Vega met with Reinl, Lyrian, and Jalen. The Chancellor's scales gleamed faintly in the lamplight. "You changed the mood of the council," Reinl said. "I do not know how you did it." Vega gave a small smile. "Sometimes people only need to see that someone believes in them." Lyrian looked at her with admiration. "You didn't shout or threaten," she said. "You just stood there." "That's all leadership is," Vega replied gently. "Stand firm and others will find their balance." Jalen leaned forward. "Do you think the Dravari will attack again soon?" "They may," Vega said. "But now they know the council will not kneel so easily. That gives us time to prepare." That night, Vega walked through the city streets. Lights glimmered in tall towers, reflecting off calm canals. Citizens moved quietly, unaware of the history written that day inside the hall. The captain paused at a balcony, looking out at the stars. Her crew joined her one by one, standing in silence. They had waited centuries for purpose, and now it had arrived. Around them, the galaxy stretched wide and uncertain, but no longer hopeless. "We have work ahead," Vega said, "but we are awake." "That is enough." Lyrian, standing nearby, felt a surge of pride. She had uncovered the path, but the humans had brought it to life. Watching them, she sensed that the story of the long vigil was only beginning. The future, fragile but bright, had opened before them. Above Vera Prime, the stars shone steady. Somewhere beyond their glow, the Dravari ships prowled, waiting for a chance to strike. But in the Hall of Concord, courage had taken root and a new alliance had been born, one that might at last hold back the darkness. Morning light spilled through the high windows of the Hall of Concord. The council chamber, once heavy with worry, now held a quieter strength. Delegates gathered at their stations, exchanging cautious greetings instead of fearful whispers. The air was still tense, but it was no longer thick with despair. Captain Arya Vega stood at the center platform with two of her officers. Their posture was calm, steady, as if they had been standing in halls like this all their lives. Nearby, Lyrian and Jalen watched, their faces bright with quiet hope. For them, this was more than a meeting. It was proof that courage could grow even in cold soil. High Chancellor Reinl called the session to order. "Representatives of the council," he said, his voice echoing gently. "We gather today to set our course. The Dravari will not stop, but neither will we. With the guidance of our new allies, we will learn to hold firm." A murmur ran through the room. Agreement, hesitation, curiosity, but not the panic that once ruled. Reinl gestured to Vega. "Captain, please speak." Vega stepped forward, her hands resting lightly behind her back. "Friends," she began, "yesterday showed that strength is not only ships or weapons. It is also the choice to stand. My people cannot fight your battles for you, but we can teach you to protect yourselves." She outlined clear steps. Patrol schedules, signal codes, supply caches hidden in deep space, quick response teams made from mixed crews of different worlds. She explained how small groups trained to work together could outthink raiders who depended only on fear. "Unity is not simple," she said, "but neither is survival. Both require steady work." Fulren, the winged delegate, raised a feathered hand. "And the Dravari?" he asked. "What if they come in force?" "Then we answer," Vega replied. "Not with chaos, but with order. Raiders thrive on confusion. If they meet calm resistance, they lose their advantage." Her quiet certainty spread through the chamber. Even Yorvak of the Steelborn, often the loudest skeptic, leaned forward listening. Over the next days, the hall turned from a place of quarrels to a center of planning. Human officers worked side by side with council aides, marking trade routes and vulnerable colonies on large star maps. They explained how to build layered defenses, decoys to lure enemies, hidden shelters for civilians, and signal beacons to call for help across long distances. Lyrian assisted the translators, turning old Terran terms into words the delegates could grasp. Jalen helped run flight simulators so young pilots could practice new maneuvers. Every corner of the hall hummed with quiet purpose. At night, Vega and her team stayed in simple guest quarters near the tower's roof. They kept watch over reports, rotating in pairs to rest while others reviewed messages from patrols. The rhythm felt natural to them. Centuries of sleep had not erased the habits of guardians. One evening, Lyrian brought them a tray of warm tea from the lower kitchens. "You hardly pause," she said as she set the cups down. "We pause when the work is safe," Vega replied with a faint smile. "Not before. Do you ever regret leaving your time behind?" Lyrian asked softly. Vega looked out the window at the stars. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But life is not about holding the past. It's about serving where you are needed." News of the Council's new resolve soon reached the wider galaxy. Merchant captains reported seeing patrols along trade lanes. Outlying colonies began digging small bunkers and installing signal towers. Even distant worlds, once resigned to silence, sent messages of support. The Dravari, too, heard. Their scouts observed the growing order and carried word back to Vatar. In a dark chamber aboard his flagship, he studied the reports, jaw tight. "These sleepers have stirred the weak," one of his captains said. Vatar tapped a claw against the table. "They have stirred something, yes. But fire burns brightest before it fades." He ordered his ships to hold for now, to test the Council's strength later. On Vera Prime, unaware of that choice, the delegates pressed forward. Rhinal called another meeting, this time with less ceremony. "We must decide," he said, "how far to trust our new allies." "Trust is earned," Jorvac said gruffly. "But they've earned a step." He gestured toward Vega. "Teach us more." Training began on the broad decks of an orbital station above the city. The humans showed Council volunteers how to move in formation, how to stay calm when sensors showed enemy blips. They shared methods to send coded signals without attracting attention, and how to use small, quick craft to draw raiders away from civilians. At first, the mix of species caused awkwardness, feathered wings brushing metal armor, misty bodies drifting too near solid controls. But slowly they found rhythm. A Kale pilot and a Steelborn engineer learned to joke together while adjusting engines. A Mistborn strategist worked with a human officer on timing defense nets. Each success built a thread of trust. Lyrian watched with quiet pride. She had started as a historian chasing faint myths. Now she saw a new history forming in front of her. During a break, Jalen leaned beside her. "They make it look easy," he said, nodding at the humans. "It's not," she replied. "They're just practiced at staying calm." "Do you think we'll really stop the Dravari?" "I think we'll give them more than they expect," she said, smiling. Weeks passed. The Council fleets, once scattered and hesitant, began to take shape. Patrol groups formed clear chains of command. Civilian ships were fitted with hidden shields and quiet engines to escape ambushes. Slowly, a sense of safety returned to markets and ports, but peace was still fragile. One gray morning, alarms rang across the station. A Dravari cruiser had entered Council space near a mining moon. Its message was clear: a challenge. The Council gathered in a control hall, screens casting pale light over their faces. Vega stood among them, calm as ever. "They want to see if you'll run," she said. "Show them you won't." Together, they watched as a small defense team, a mix of humans and Council pilots, moved to intercept. Guided by strategies learned in training, they set decoys to split the cruiser's sensors, then sent firm warnings through secure channels. The Dravari ship circled for a tense hour, its weapons hot but unused. At last it turned and slid back into empty space. Cheers rippled through the room. It was only a skirmish avoided, but it felt like a star rising after a long night. "This is how you win," Vega told them quietly, one steady choice at a time. When the first stage of defenses was complete, the Council invited citizens to a ceremony in the Hall of Concord. Lanterns hung in the high arches, glowing soft gold. Delegates filled the seats while visitors crowded balconies above. Rhinal addressed them. For too long, fear ruled our hearts, he said. But today we remember that unity is stronger than terror. He turned toward Vega and her crew. We thank those who woke from the long vigil. You reminded us who we can be. Vega inclined her head. We only lit a spark, she said. You carried it. Applause rose, gentle but steady like rain on stone. For a moment, the galaxy's troubles felt lighter. Afterward, Vega and her people returned briefly to Aurora 7. They wished to check the sleepers still in their pods and maintain the vault systems. Inside the icy chamber, lights glowed softly over rows of silent faces. The captain paused, laying a hand on the clear surface of one capsule. Rest a little longer, she murmured. We'll call when you're needed. Lyrian watched, moved by the care in Vega's voice. Do you think they'll ever all wake? Perhaps, Vega said. But only if the stars ask for them. On their last evening before leaving the frozen world again, Vega, Lyrian, Jalen, and several humans stood outside the vault. The sky above stretched black and deep, filled with steady points of light. A calm wind swept across the plain. We started as stories, Vega said quietly, looking at the stars. Now we stand together, living the next chapter. Jalen smiled. Not bad for an old myth. Not bad at all, Lyrian added. They turned toward their ship, leaving footprints across the snow that soon blurred in the breeze. Behind them, the vault lights faded to a faint gleam, a reminder that strength could sleep and still be ready. As their shuttle rose into the dark, the Council's signals reached them. Reports of new patrols, settlements rebuilding, and traders daring to open routes once closed. The galaxy was not free of danger, but it was no longer without hope. High above, in the endless night, the stars watched silently. Somewhere beyond them, the Dravari plotted, waiting for weakness. But they would not find the galaxy as they left it. They would meet a council that stood taller, and a handful of humans who had already shown what resilience looked like. For the first time in many years, balance felt possible. Not perfect, not safe forever, but alive, like a small flame against the dark, guarded by steady hands. And so the story of the long vigil closed its first circle, opening a new one. Humanity, once forgotten under ice, walked again among the stars, not as conquerors but as guides. The council, once trembling, had found its voice. Together they would keep watch, holding a fragile peace, ready to defend it with calm hearts and clear purpose.